All right, we are recording. Why is this? Oh, it says it's lock. Okay, no, it's recording. Okay. I know there's a lock button up there. I've never seen that before. It
Huh.
says recording. Okay. All
Okay,
right,
good.
cool. All right. Well, I have Dr. Perry on the podcast today, and I'm excited to talk to you. You're a chiropractic physician. You're a specialist in functional movement, kind of all the areas that I'm interested in exploring in health. So, like I said, I just want to go down some of the rabbit holes with you and just kind of see where you're coming from, your philosophy. Because I mentioned to you before that, I'm a fan of Dr. Morse.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not a student of his, but I could follow his teachings. I really resonated with what he was preaching about, the lymphatic system and, kidney filtration and how that's kind of the root cause of a lot of health issues that people are
I agree
experiencing.
with him. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like his work a lot. I love his energy, right? And he's very authentic kind of person. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've watched, he's got a ton of videos and
He does.
I kind of like more now like his spiritual talks, not so much
Uh-huh.
the health talk because it's kind of redundant. I mean, it's kind of the same message, but yeah, I like when he kind of gets into the spiritual stuff. That's
Well,
interesting.
it's amazing how much that stuff actually overlaps the more you're in healthcare and medicine. When you look at chronic disease today, I mean, you have to take in that whole mixture of what makes us human beings. And I don't think you can ignore emotional side and spiritual side. I think that word kind of carries this negative connotation sometimes
Yeah.
when you say spiritual, but it's a major part of how we see the presence of ourselves, in the world and with other people. And, it can be a major component in my personal opinion of whether someone can get well or not well. Or I always thought you're never going to heal if you are alone or if you feel alone. That's a major
Yeah.
component um, to healing and regeneration and involvement with human beings and our universe that we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hear a lot too. People say, I mean, there's like the spiritual component, and then I don't know, is healing just based in the physical or is it mental as well? Because I hear people say, no, I ate this crappy diet, but I was in great health. I'm not sure what that means, but
Yeah.
just mentally they were in the right place to eat the food and didn't have negative effects towards the food or what have you. So it's interesting how just mentally and emotionally you can kind of overcome sicknesses and stuff like that. So
Oh, you can. Well, if you read enough in this world, especially when you get sick yourself, which is a major life lesson, right?
yeah,
Or you have a loved one in your life that gets sick, which sometimes can be harder on you because you feel more powerlessness, than when you're there. But I firmly believe that. I jokingly say that's what makes us human, and we're not rocks, right? I mean,
yeah,
like how you think, and when you look at the research, how you think changes your biology, changes your physiology. There's a
yeah,
ton of it that you can look at, and even from the sports performance world, right? I mean, if you think you feel better or going to perform better, you do. If you think you
yeah,
feel worse and you're not going to perform well, you do. I mean, it's
yeah,
just very straightforward. The cells of your body always listen to your self-talk, how you perceive the world, right? I mean, you have all these books because I've had cancer in the past and loved ones that passed away from cancer, and it's such a awful disease the world suffers. When you start to learn from that, you can see stories of people that their mindset
hmm,
made a difference on their recovery, right? And it's like some of the things they didn't change anything they were doing except their mindset. And some people in
right,
medicine will look at that as a negative way, like as a placebo, as if placebo is a bad word. I mean, placebo is
yeah,
extremely powerful, and a placebo is a fact of sickness and health, right? So everything from the very first moment that you come in contact with another human being and interact with them, there's a placebo effect going on in there. So you have to take that into consideration and not discount the power of that. And I think at least in the world of healthcare that I see from my perspective, I mean, the more we get into technological advances and things we can do with machinery, the less we lose sight of our humaneness and the connection that we have with the nature in and of itself, but of our own mind in relationship to healing. But I mean, I see it all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, people can think themselves sick quick, fast, and in a hurry. Look around the world today, the stress that we're under.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sometimes it's just freaking common sense, honestly. Right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It really is.
I got a friend who said he's a detox specialist guy, and I don't know, he put like a quote on Facebook or something that says, "I suck financially in the health industry because I have nothing to offer but common sense." It's like, yeah,
Yeah, well, the running joke is something you see less and less of, right? And
yeah,
but we also have a tendency to overanalyze things or overcomplicate things, right? And you lose the simplicity factor. The answer doesn't have to be complicated to work. Is one of the things that I say, and you'll. The interesting thing about healthcare is that a lot of the basics and the fundamental things that we need to stay healthy or restore health are missing from the grocery list that I call it. Fundamental minerals and nutrients that you
yeah,
need, or enzymes, or the ability for your body to actually get rid of its own metabolic waste and the toxins of the world that come at it through that detoxification process that you talk about, or we talk about. If that is hindered in any way or doesn't work as efficiently as it could, well, that makes you more susceptible to staying sick or getting sick. I usually tell people that the only reason you stay sick is for two reasons. You have a deficiency in something or a toxicity, which means you have too much of something. That's it. But
yeah,
you gotta manage both, right?
yeah.
If you don't give the body what it needs, even from the way that you think, like we were talking before, because how you think stresses the hell out of you, right?
Right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, right. You're going to struggle to get well and to stay well. I mean, I tell people that just because you do all of those things doesn't mean that you're not going to have something happen, right? But
right, right.
it can significantly decrease your chances of it happening. Or if it does happen, how about you don't struggle for as long, all right, or as much to get, because
Yeah,
your body's always fighting for you to get healthy. It's always in your corner. It never stops fighting. It feels that way sometimes when you're sick and you just feel like giving up and you're like, why are you doing this to me? But it's still trying its best to heal you on every step of the way. And I think that we need to really remember that when we're sick. And it's difficult because I've been there.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I should mention I'm on day 5 of a water fast right now. so
Oh,
so
wow.
so
Okay.
if I have a little brain fart or some fog memory, yeah, that's what's going on. But yeah,
Oh, no worries. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, those are great.
yeah, because I understand the importance of, because the problem is we're eating too much and too much of the wrong foods faster than our body can heal itself. And so
Hmm.
then we plug up the pathways of elimination, and then you start getting that inflammation, acidity within the body. So yeah, just taking the time to leave food alone, or, do the intermittent fasting or stuff like that. Huge benefits. I mean, the science has shown that. So I
Yeah,
don't
it was
know.
very helpful for me.
What
Yeah.
was it? Yeah.
That's something that is interesting. I'd never really looked at nutrition that way in the past. And even though I'm in healthcare, I've always been into fitness, right? So I would eat for fitness, which is very different than eating for health, by the way.
Right. Right.
Because just because you're fit, yeah, you work out and exercise, doesn't mean that you're healthy.
Right.
But I was eating because I was a bodybuilder, so it's all about eating for muscle and decrease fat and performance. But I was really getting sicker every year doing that. And for a bodybuilder, you would never go more than 2 to 3 hours without eating some form of protein because you feel like you were losing muscle mass, right? I
Right.
would
Right.
be eating 7, 8 times a day, whether I wanted to or not. And that's a massive load to your system and a lot of energy that it takes your body to do. That's even when you have a well functioning gut, which almost no human being on the planet has, by the way. And so when I did intermittent fasting, it was more of a psychological thing for me to get over, honestly. But I can't tell you how much
Yeah.
better I felt when I gave myself a break. I would do like the 16-hour fast. And it was significant in helping me to recover from, my illness and a swelling and inflammation that I had from a poorly functioning lymphatic system for many years. And I lost 30 pounds in 1 month, most of it being inflammation,
Right.
and edema, swelling. And then fat came off too, because you'll discover that fat is a mechanism that your body uses to surround toxins. So most people will gain weight to prevent the body from becoming toxic, to surround them. So most excess weight is not really caloric; it's toxicity. Your
Yeah,
body
Texas,
trying to
yeah.
deal with toxin. Yeah, and then it's very difficult to lose weight then, because when you want to burn the body fat that holds the toxins, your body won't let you burn the body fat because you can't control the toxin. So you just kind of like stay where you are. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
this battle that you go through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of confusion out there too right now in the health industry. I mean, it's confusing. But I want to ask you. So you have this body aquarium lymphatic mojo. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's a protocol, a system. Could you kind of explain a little bit what that means? Because that's what caught my eye to you, is the word lymphatic. I'm like, because not too many people are talking about that
Right.
as it pertains to health. So I'm fascinated to talk to other people who are aware of what's kind of taking
Yeah.
place. So
Well, thank you very much for the mention on that. And there's really not a lot of people that talk about the lymphatic system, quite honestly. And I've been a chiropractor for 25 years, and I never really looked at it either.
right.
Honestly, they don't teach a squat about it in school, by the way. You just go through it really fast. And then so I only got into it because I got really deathly ill from an autoimmune disease about 3/4 years ago, and I got turned on to the system by somebody who was working with it and saw how I looked. Very puffy, very swollen, struggled to breathe, had to breathe through my mouth. I was always having like sinuses, postnasal drip, sniffing all the time, clearing my throat all the time, and just brain fog galore, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm just the fluid inside of my body, which is why I call it the body aquarium, right? So the body, you have a fluid system in your body where all your cells live, like a fish tank, right? And lymphatic system is that system. So I was swimming in a lot of toxicity and metabolic waste and acidity. So I just couldn't get well because my cells were not in an environment that was conducive to healing. And I used the body aquarium for kind of like an analogy for people. So I would say, if you see a fish tank, it can be absolutely beautiful and crisp and clear, and you've got gorgeous tropical fish and everything looks good in there. But what keeps it that way is the filtration system underneath that you don't really look at, right? You just see the eye candy top.
Right.
But, if the filtration system underneath, something happens to it gets defective or doesn't work well, then the water in the tank starts to change color. And we know what that looks like, kind of algae, bacteria, or a pool that loses its filtration system. It just looks yucky.
Yeah.
And then the fish end up struggling, getting disease, or they end up dying, right? And you get all this coated film over everything. Well, that's what happens inside of your body when your lymphatic system doesn't work that well. So forget the cells being able to regenerate because they can't get rid of waste. And then whatever nutrients that you do take in can't actually go through that water to get into the cell, because that's what they have to do. So I thought to myself, you know what? It's probably important to not so much take care of everything inside of the tank, which you should. I mean, like if you need new fish, you need new fish, right? Or if you got coral or rocks. But those are all the systems inside the body that we struggle with disease or we try to help. And I'm like, okay, well, we should do that, right? But what if I went in and I put everything brand new in there and I dumped the water out and put new water in and didn't fix the filtration system, right? So again, it's gonna get the same thing's gonna keep coming back. And I've always struggled over my years to look at why do things keep coming back? We're supposed to stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, first I was like, this is amazing. Like, and then I got really upset. Like, why the hell didn't I look at this
Right.
before? Or why didn't somebody tell me about the important? And I thought, well, if it's that important, wouldn't they have told me already? Well, not really, right? Because either one, they don't know about it yet, right? Or two, they don't want to tell you. And I'll let you figure that one out. But and when I tried and I took care of that system, and I started to feel much better. right? And I'm like, I'm onto something. But I'm like, there's very little information out there, like you said before, for people to look at. So I use this quote all the time when I teach, and it's from Gandhi, and many people have heard it. It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I thought to myself, well, if there's nothing out there, I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
I decided to put a video together that actually talked about the system and then showed you, okay, how do you assess the system? And then how can you treat the system on yourself, but then on someone else? And then I gave you recommendations for things that you can do to help it after that. I didn't know what to expect when I put it out there, and I wasn't really planning on teaching any courses on the subject either. But the feedback was crazy,
Yeah.
and the video just exploded all over the world. I was just taken back by how many. Every day I get messages from people that say thank you. I cannot tell you how much this thing helped. They had no idea, and then I always say the same thing afterwards. I didn't know it could be that simple either. Right?
Right.
That simple either. And so I decided, well, that's great. Maybe I'll teach a course on it. So I decided, let me launch a 1-day course and see if anybody shows up. Right. And then, so people really love the 1-day course, and I knew I could easily make it a 2-day course.
Yeah.
So then I started to teach the 2-day course, and those exploded too. So, it's something that I try to tell everyone, that if you have this, something that you're passionate about or something that you wanted to do, just put it out there in the world. You never know where it's going to go or who you might change. And I've never done anything out there that I do on video or on my website or in my courses that I haven't done on myself first. So I was the first person that got help by it. And really what I said to myself was this, like, listen, I'm in this business and I had no idea. So I can't imagine what an everyday person has to go through when they're looking for answers. And, that kind of brought me to where I am here today. I tried to take that subject and make it very approachable and applicable to so people say, can I come to your courses? Can I do your work? I'm not a professional. I'm like, all you have to be is a human being. That's it. There's no other prerequisites.
Right.
You have to have a lymphatic system and you're good to go. Right. Yeah. And I actually mix things into this, honestly, that you come across things in the world at the right time or when you're ready to see it. So I've studied human movement for many years. I've studied pain science. I've studied brain science for many years. So I mixed in a lot of those concepts in with the lymphatic system, because one of the fundamental principles I teach is that no system in your body ever works alone, and that you're only as strong and resilient as your weakest and your most vulnerable system, which most often is the lymphatic system. So I found that all those other things that I was already doing worked that much better when I worked the lymph, but I taught other people how to mix those principles in there as well. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to show people how to do stuff by hand. I'm going to show different approaches that can be easier, some a little more complicated, depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. And then I just showed people how to do the technique using a toothbrush as well. So it teaches a principle called dry brushing, where you take a brush and you brush your skin in a very specific manner in order to have the best results. And I said, well, you know what? That's great. But a lot of people in this life actually wouldn't take the time to try to find a brush to brush their body, because they don't know. They don't know, should I get this one? Should I get that one? Or where should I order it from? And then in the world of habit and behavior, when you're dealing with trying to change that for someone, you want to reduce as much friction that's associated with somebody starting a new habit. And I thought, well, most everybody on this earth has a toothbrush. So then I just showed them how to do it with a toothbrush. So it removed any excuse whatsoever for them to do it. And then that kind of became like the different thing anyway, like using a toothbrush. And so everything just kind of fell into place when it needed to. But I never would have found this stuff if I didn't get really, really sick on my own, which definitely sucked, but it was a blessing as well, because it forced me to look at myself and look at the world and health in a completely different way.
Yeah. Pain's the great motivator, they say. So, it's crazy. It's insane. There's a huge disconnect with like people, because you're talking about toothbrushes. It made me think like, our exterior, we'll go to great lengths to look good on the outside. Like if we run out of toothpaste, we buy more. Run out of shampoo, we buy more. Run out of body lotion, that's never ending. That's always going to continue. So we're always going to be fixing the outside, but we don't think about the inside. You know, it's like we need to constantly be working on that and fixing that terrain as well. But just a disconnect there. It's vanity.
I know, it really is. It's kind of the out of sight, out of mind type thing. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
just,
sure is. Yeah.
And honestly, you just kind of take for granted that everything's good.
Yeah, hope it's going to work
inside.
out.
Yeah, because unless you have like physical pain of some sort,
yeah,
then you think everything's great. But you know, if you look around, the world is suffering more from episodes of lifestyle chronic diseases than ever before in the history of man, and it's not getting better; it's getting worse. So those things take decades to manifest themselves, to build up. And then all of a sudden one day, holy cow, like yesterday I was fine, but today I've got chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia or Parkinson's. And those things take a long time to manifest themselves. They creep up, right?
Yeah.
And then it's very hard to take care of that kind of disease from the current way we look at medicine, where we just look for one bad guy that we can point the finger at and throw a pill at or cut out of the body, and then all is right with the world. And not so much. Same with cancer. I mean, when you got cancer and you cut cancer out, doesn't mean you took care of the process that caused cancer by any means whatsoever. Even when you do chemo, you get rid of chemo, the cancer cells, but you kill a lot of other ones too. But it doesn't fix the process that caused it to get there in the first place.
Fix the symptom, not the root cause.
Yeah, exactly. And then, that's why people can get something many years later. Again, the body just finds another place to have it. And the lymphatic system, back to the lymphatic system, I mean, that's a crucial player. That's the only time most people hear the word lymphatic is when they have cancer, because they say cancer can metastasize. That's the fancy word, means it can travel anywhere in the body from one single location. And the primary mechanism of your body that delivers it is your lymph. And then if you step back and think about that for a moment, like maybe it's a really important system then, if it can send a cell anywhere in the damn body and it can manifest somewhere else. Maybe it's something that we should take a look at long before we actually develop some type of cancer or some type of disease that we're dealing with. And my practice focuses mainly now on chronic, difficult, hard to fix cases, from chronic pain. Chronic pain is anything that is over 6 weeks, or autoimmune disease, lifestyle diseases, for when they don't really know. They just know your body decided to turn on itself, is basically what they call that.
Yeah.
And so they come in to me, and all the very first system, the absolute first system I look at on everyone is the lymphatic system, without a doubt. And most people, I'm going to tell you, 99.9% of everyone says, nobody ever talked to me about that system. Nobody ever assessed that system. And if you have a lymphatic system problem, that means you have an immune system problem, because the lymphatic system is a major player of your immune system. And with autoimmune, basically your immune system has a job, is to kill stuff, right?
Yeah.
It either kills it fast or it kills it slow. And then that's what autoimmune disease is, that your body just starts to kill you either fast or slow, depending on what type of immune system dominance that you have. And then the lymphatic system starts to get broken down from two different pathways, but you still get the same result, where you can't get rid of metabolic waste, and you sit in a sewage system of your body, and of course you just feel blah, right?
Yeah.
You just can't heal. It's really astounding to me how few people talk about it. Because when I started to get into it first, I Googled lymph, right? And I'm looking at anything and everything. Few people, like we talked about before, that are discussing it. And then I just said, I'm going to do it myself. But also, people have a tendency to make it seem like a system that's so complicated to work, and that, oh, don't touch it because, you know, oh, you could do something horribly wrong. It's not,
Right.
it's not that delicate of a system, right? I mean, so I think that one of the things that can happen, the longer you feel sick or you feel a sense of disempowerment or disconnection, you become very fearful of a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And you become fearful of your own body with having the capability to heal itself.
Yeah. Now,
And back to mind body again.
right.
Right.
When you're working with a client or somebody, do you worry about that kidney filtration at all? Because I know Dr. Morse is pretty
Yeah,
heavy on that. Want to
absolutely.
start seeing the
So
sediment? Yeah.
yeah, well, you know, you have many different ways that your body detoxifies itself. You know, the lymphatic system is a part of that system, but you have your skin, which is a huge one, right? Most people will manifest skin issues that will give you an indication of
Right.
underlying organ
Yeah.
detoxification issues. And yeah, the liver, of course. I jokingly say that, how do you know you have a liver problem? And my answer is, you're alive. I mean, that's how you know. It just depends on where it is on the spectrum of your liver, of how it's affecting your body. And then the liver goes, and then you got to go down to the kidney. So I usually will do kidney stuff first, because if I clear the liver goes to the kidney, and the kidney can't handle what the liver's sending it.
Right.
So you have to work your way back up the pipeline when you go that way, right? And the kidneys are the lone guys that nobody really pays attention to anymore, unless you got like a kidney stone or something, or a kidney infection.
Yeah, I've had those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys can lose a massive amount of their overall function, like something like 70. I forget the exact number, but it's like 70 to 80% of their function before you have any freaking idea
Right.
that there's a problem, right? And they have a big job. And if you're at a point where something shows up, you know, in your testing results, you've had an issue for a long time. But interesting enough, all of my testing, I don't really do blood tests anymore. I don't find them very reliable. They're just a single snapshot in time. Most of my work, when I check hormone levels for people, or I check organic acids test to look at different nutrients in the body, it's by urine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the kidneys are massive player that you need to look at.
Yeah, hugely important. Yeah, the pathways, elimination, even the breath. We got respiration, perspiration, defecation, urination. Yeah.
Even just, I posted today on my Instagram. I mean, you know, majority of people in this world have a vitamin D deficiency, and at least 50% when you look at the research. And you know, the vitamin D gets activated through the liver through one pathway, and then the kidney through the other. So if you've got kidney issues, even though you're out in the sun, you have a hard time synthesizing vitamin D, and then vitamin D is really going to be tight. I see a huge amount of that in the female population. You're going to have tiredness, fatigue, lethargy, brain fog, hormone issues, all sorts of stuff like that. And massive. So, you know, and it's not a matter of just taking vitamin D either. You got to be very careful when you are low in something and just driving one single pathway in the body. The body doesn't work like that. Just because it's high doesn't mean you take it down. Just because it's low doesn't mean I give you more of it, because everything has to work together with this relationship of balance, like that way.
Yeah.
So there's many different, you always have to ask yourself, okay, well, why the hell is this, why is it low? Right? Then you have to look at, well, you know, maybe the organs that help synthesize that have an issue, right? Same thing with enzymes. Like, you know, if you take digestive enzyme because you may have gut issues or gas or bloating or low hydrochloric acid, which most people do.
Yeah.
Enzymes can't do anything without a mineral. So if you're missing a single mineral, you're screwed. Like, you just won. But the minerals have this relationship too. And so we know, like, most people have magnesium and zinc issues, and they just take magnesium. That's not what you want to do. You want to get a spectrum of different ones to take. But without a mineral, an enzyme can't catalyze, can't activate. So I think that's what's ended up missing in medicine today, is that all of these specializations where we isolate one system and then you see this particular specialist for that and this particular specialist for here. And meanwhile, your body's going, hey, Yoo-hoo, we actually talk to each other, these two systems here. And, he depends on me too. But when you go out in the world of healthcare, we get broken down into isolated parts so much that I think one of the two biggest missing components I see in healthcare today are understanding interactions and relationships between all the systems of the body, and almost like ecology in a way. It's an ecology of how things work together in an environment. And the other one is the ability to take a really in-depth client history to look for the answer.
Right.
Because that's where you'll find it. You'll find it in the history.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: as a chiropractic physician, a lot of your patients that come in to see you, is that tied into maybe the lymphatic system or chronic dehydration? Like, why are people having like spinal issues and things like that? Is it tied into the lymphatic system not working properly? Or is it just long-term bad posture?
Well, it's everything, right? Everything is interconnected, right?
Yeah, it's just part of the puzzle.
Yeah, because I mean, it's lifestyles and behavior and environment. So it will, of course, be posture, right? And then one of the reasons that it causes what we call mechanical deformation. That's a big fancy word for it. Changes in a tissue. You might know it as like a callus or something, right? Or osteoarthritis or something, or posture. You usually get those because you do either one, no movement, and you're just sedentary, and then you decay, or you do the same kind of movement all the time. Habit. Right. You have an adaptation to it, right? And it's total BS that you're supposed to decay and decline as you get older. I mean, you're designed to run at optimum for a long time, right?
Right.
So it's not age related, all of these things. It's environment, behavior, lifestyle mediated, right? Not even genetics, because now they're saying that you can have a genetic predisposition for something, but it doesn't mean that you're doomed to have it. You can flip that switch based on your environment. The one inside of your head, how you think and how you perceive the world, right?
Yeah.
But your external environment and your internal environment, all of those things can flip a switch to turn a gene on, but you can also turn one off as you go. That's called epigenetics. That's called. So when people come in to see me, first of all, you have to kind of categorize why most people go see someone for help anyway. Usually they have pain, right? Yeah. Pain that doesn't go away. First of all, you have to understand what pain is. For me, my favorite definition of pain is a request for change.
Right.
And if you think about that, it's a request. It's your body asking nicely in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it doesn't get so nice. That's where pain comes really intense or doesn't go away.
Yeah, it whispers at first, then it'll scream at you.
Yeah, it's a request for change. That's interesting. Change what? You need to change some type of habit or behavior that you're doing. Not necessarily which drug you take, right? I mean, you have to change something in your life. But pain is also 100% of the time protective. It's there as a protective mechanism for your body. It doesn't signal actual tissue damage. It doesn't equate to tissue damage, which means that something that's damaged a lot doesn't necessarily hurt more.
Yeah.
Right? You can have something that you can barely see, or a lot of times in medicine, they can't see anything on an X-ray or an MRI, but meanwhile, you're really suffering. And then they'll say it's all in your head. Well, they're actually right, because pain is in the brain. So you'll get input from your body, but your brain has to perceive and integrate those signals. And sometimes those signals can be, there could be a little bit of glitch in the matrix you might say, right?
Yeah.
So it's called the biopsychosocial model of pain, BPS. The bio, which is your biological structure, psycho here, and social, your social interaction with your environment or other human beings, right? So that's a major component of healing is social interaction. So all of those things have to be taken into account. So most people ignore pain until it gets really bad. And then when they do go in for pain, most people will go after the site of pain, which is what you should start there to make sure that nothing has physically damaged. Because sometimes, a zebra is a zebra. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right?
Right.
But if you keep treating the site of pain and something keeps coming back, well, it usually means it's coming from somewhere else, or you missed something with your initial diagnosis on that type of thing. So you have to change your approach. But that's what my business is stop chasing pain. It doesn't say stop treating pain. It just says stop chasing it. So I usually tell people I'm going to treat where you hurt, but I'm also going to look at everything else. Right? And my practice, the way it's designed now, honestly, is I'm not the first go-to guy that you see when you have pain. Like if your neck hurts or your back hurts or your knee hurts or your shoulder hurts, you'll go to a chiropractor, usually help with back pain. You'll go to a physical therapist, or all these guys are great ways to help other human beings. And here's their little secret. All those approaches work for somebody, right? I've just my practice has developed that when you've hit the end of the road and you've tried what should have worked by now, or what I call the traditional approach, and you've done everything that you're supposed to, and you're not where you want to be. Maybe it didn't help at all, or it helped, but it stopped helping, or it helped, but it keeps coming back. Right. I'm the guy that you usually end up going to see because I look at the body a very different way. And that kind of happened not intentionally either. Like it just organically happened because honestly, I have a nice luxury when people come to see me is that I know you've been to a lot of really wonderful practitioners that were trying to do their best to help you. And they've been able to test things and rule out a lot of things that could be causing your problem. Like you want to make sure that you don't have cancer. I want to make sure that you don't have something that's broken or that you might need surgery, because sometimes we do. I mean, medicine is needed sometimes for that, right? Yeah. And when they're like, I don't know, man, I really can't see anything. Well, then that takes a different paradigm, a different way of looking at things. And then that's what I do. It's a thrill of my life, honestly, to do that.
Yeah. Well, you were saying before about, pain being, the way the body's speaking to us, but we've gotten to a point now in our culture where we don't want to feel what the body's telling us. We'll be quickly to subdue the pain. If we get a cough, we want to stop that cough immediately. Get a runny nose, we got to stop the runny nose. So it's like, we don't want to feel what the body's telling us. I mean, if something's going on long term, yeah, you want to kind of get a hold on it, but just immediately we're like, I don't want to feel that because that's uncomfortable. That doesn't feel good. And we're
going to suppress everything, right?
Yeah,
a lot of it's because I like, the running joke is, I ain't got time to be sick, man. I mean, I got things to do. I got places to go. Like, it's just this go type thing. And then it's not fun to have a fever, right? It's not fun to have a cough or a sneeze. And, but those are actually they're not punishment symptoms. They are protective healing systems where your body's trying to eliminate something. And then, you feel better when I can slam some medication and I might be able to function. But it actually will usually drag out longer what you are trying to get rid of, up to a point, right? I mean, you have to know that sometimes you might have a serious illness where you need some antibiotics or medication. Don't even get me started on that because they're usually overprescribed anyway. Right. Or you have a virus and they can't do squat for a virus. You're just going to have to ride that out, and you're taking all these things to try to antibiotic that out, or your symptoms of a virus. And so those, it's more about comfort, not the long-term healing. But I'm stepping back and I'm going, okay, well, why the hell did you get sick in the first place? Like, not everybody in a room gets the same cold. Not everybody in the room gets the same bacterial infection or viral infection for that matter. Or if they do, it might not be as severe, assuming you're talking about whatever strain. Like, you have to keep in mind
Right.
that, if you get exposed to like an HIV virus or an Ebola virus, and that's some serious shit, right? But, if you have like a cold virus or bacteria for here, not everybody in the room is going to get that. And like, okay, we got to ask yourself, why is that?
Right.
Well, because one person's immune system was better equipped to deal with that than another. And what they say is it's not the germ itself, it's the environment, right? So it's the breeding ground that you have for something to be able to take hold. And if it does take hold, how long is it going to grab you for?
Yeah.
And can it let go? And most of the time, people will get sick or stay sick because, I said before, they have a deficiency where they don't have enough nutrients, minerals, vitamins, fundamental macronutrients that they need. So they don't have what they need, or they have built up too much of something, toxicity in something.
Right.
And then you stay sick. So you need to balance both of those scales. And if you do need medicine, prescription medication to take, well, then by all means take that. Just realize that you're probably going to give a nice hit to your liver and your kidneys at the same time.
All right.
But then go on a program after that to restore. There's no reason why you can't do both. I'm certainly not anti-medication or anti-medicine by any means, right? But we need to have this mixture of both worlds, in my opinion, because the people that are going to benefit are those that are suffering and need the help.
Yeah. Well, you just said that, like not two people are alike, everybody's going to be a little bit different. I'm always curious to wonder, like, is our medical baselines accurate? I mean, like blood pressures and things of that nature and blood chemistry. Were they taking those off of unhealthy people, like the baselines that we have now? So maybe we could do much better than what the actual standard baseline requirements should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like if you look at, that's a great question. So a guy I teach with I have a functional medicine and movement course with a good friend of mine, Dr. Stuart Gillespie from our other company. And he says, well, where did somebody come up with these blood results things, And he said, actually, I think it was from the 60s. He said, they took 100 people and they did it and said, okay, we got extreme over here, we'll slice it in the middle. And so they had to draw the line in the sand somewhere, and start, right? And then with medicine, if you're in this one, no good. If you're in that one, no good. I'm interested in the progress to sliding that way, right? And so if you have say you have from a 1 to a 6 arbitrary number on a test that you're looking for, say you're thyroid, I'm just making the numbers up. If you're a 3 to a 4, you're good, right? But, if you go to 5 or you go to a 2, you're not. I mean, it's just like one deviation difference, right? So that's a huge difference between how you're going to feel. And it's the same thing with how we look at nutrition. I mean, the FDA, at least in the United States, has the recommended daily allowance of nutrients, but that's not the optimal amount. That's a baseline amount so you can actually not get sick.
Yeah.
Right? That you need to survive. They have nothing to do with thriving. Usually you're going to need at least double or triple most of the stuff that they have in there. And then based on how we eat in the modern world today and what we have to eat, people are not even getting an RDA amount of nutrients. If anything, they're actually making themselves more toxic because of all the food that's boxed and processed and everything in there. And then when we do grow food, the soil is so depleted or it's sprayed with glyphosate and all those things and all the toxins that come in there. It's actually a wonder that the human body can even function in the world that we live in right now.
It is amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
I tell people this, like being healthy is not a right. Being healthy, health is a 4-letter word. It's work. You got to work your ass off for it. It doesn't just happen. So no longer can you just sit back and think that you're going to stay well and you can do whatever you want. And I go somewhere and somebody's going to make me all better. Wrong. It's up to you. You have to take on that responsibility and educate yourself and learn as well. And then no two people are the same on things, right? And you only learn that lesson when you've been really, really sick, or you have someone in your life that's been really, really sick. And if you get caught in the modern healthcare machine and you've got an autoimmune disease, it ain't going to be a fun trip. I'll tell you right now. You're going to have to take back control on your own, because I mean, who wants it? Who should want it more than you? Right.
Yeah.
Who should want it more than you?
I still get blown away when people don't think like detoxification is a real thing. They're like, oh, the body does it itself. That's what the liver is for. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But yeah, like you're saying with today's, the 5G, the glyphosate, we got to assist the body as much as we can. It's just been bombarded too quickly, faster than it can eliminate. So that's just
there's always going to be an opposition with everything, right? I've had people say, I had some people say that toxins aren't real, and I'm just like, okay, I'm moving on. And then other ones are like, that detoxification is a myth, all that kind of stuff, But I always say people still think the earth is flat. I mean, you got like people on all things. So that means knowledge can
wait,
be
powerful. The earth's not flat. What are you saying?
That's what I heard.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But yeah, and the knowledge can be empowering, but you also have to look. I found there's so much of it that it can be disempowering. We don't know where to go, and the information can be right, but it might not be the right one for you. So it can be very overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. So, like for instance, when I ventured in, because I had severe leaky gut syndrome. That's where you get a break in the lining of your digestive tract, your small intestine, large intestine. And I was very sick from that. And I was trying to look for a gut healing restorative protocol. Right. And you can't give the same protocol to every person and expect it to work. So even though the protocol can be helpful for someone's gut, it wasn't helpful for mine. I actually got worse. So you have to, it's the same with other medications too, right? I mean, medication can work well for one and not work well for the other. So you have to become what I think is being lost in the world today is a sense of body awareness, like of what you're feeling inside yourself, what you're feeling after you eat something or when you do a particular activity. Or here's one, how you feel when you spend time with a person. Does that person make you feel awful? I mean, do you just feel like drained and unhealthy when you leave?
Right.
And maybe you can get around somebody and you're like, you know what? I spent some time with them and I just feel happier. I feel better. I feel more energy. That's an energy transfer between human beings. That's why when you hug a pet, you always feel better because they always transfer some great energy, right? But you better be very selective on the human that you choose to hug, right? Yeah. So all that stuff matters.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach for sure.
Yeah.
I want to kind of switch gears here a little bit. So I was a personal trainer for a couple of years, and that was about 10 years ago. So I've been kind of out of the loop for a little bit. So back then, what they taught was, if you're going to go to the gym, you need to do like a 5-10 minute warm up, right? You don't want to exercise when the muscles are cold. You want to get the heart rate up a little bit. Then you do the foam roll. Then you want to do foam rolling. Then you do your stretching. Then you can do your resistance training, and then you repeat the cool down. Is that still important to do it in that order? Because I feel like as adults, we kind of overthink it a little bit sometimes, because we were kids, we went out to play. It wasn't like, hey, Billy, wait, I got to
Right.
stretch before we go ride our bikes. You know what I mean? So you just went out and played. You didn't overthink it. So
Right.
is that really necessary?
I personally, from my standpoint, I don't think so. And I think that you're so true. We overthink everything.
Yeah.
And what we have to be important that we look at the difference between exercise and movement. Like, exercise is a man-made concoction, and it's specifically designed where you'll do a regimen of exercises, i.e. usually on machines or in certain amount of sets. That's not real life, by the way. So, that's different than movement. Exercise is just one form of movement. Right. So, if you go into, at least for now, of how most people don't move enough of themselves at all, and they go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour when they train, right? So that's just human nature. But you mentioned a word that gravitated towards me when you said it, and that's play, right? Play is uniquely different. So play is where you stop thinking about the fact that you're thinking. That's what play is. You kind of get out of your own way, and when you play, you just are in the moment, and you move. And they're seeing that play is great for stress, because play takes away any judgment from yourself or around you, right? And you're just being. And play is actually nature's way of teaching animals and teaching humans how to move, but also how to interact with other animals and other humans, like that way. So usually what I do for me is that, when I usually will do some type of play game before I move, right? Like that. And because I'm not thinking about, I have to do my warm-up drill or stretch drill. And when you look at research, they're showing you that static stretching doesn't do much for you anyway. It actually can make you more vulnerable, because the body doesn't function in isolated parts when you move. So that can be a factor as well. But I do think that, and when you jump on a foam roller, sometimes those things are so awful painful.
Right. Yeah.
And when you look at the current pain science, you never want to put yourself in pain when you're trying to do any type of therapy, because when you flip the pain switch, you flip on the survival switch, and your body won't let you learn anything new. It'll actually tense up and tighten up and fall back on old life-saving protective tightening patterns. So it feels good when you do it, but it doesn't have long-term results afterwards, because of how you bounce back afterwards from just protecting itself, right? So you have to look long-term. Just because you do something and it feels good doesn't mean it's actually might be doing something long-term. So plus what I think is missing in the world of fitness, but absolutely in the world of rehabilitation, is what I call the 3 V's: variation, variability, and variety. We need different things, right? The brain craves different. It needs different. It loves things that are novel, and it gets bored quick, fast, and in a hurry. So if the brain doesn't have a difference, it can't learn. So it needs thing A and it needs thing B, so it can compare A and B together to see what it needs to do next.
Right.
If it doesn't have a perceived difference, because a difference that isn't perceived doesn't exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to perceive a difference. Then the brain can take a new pathway, and then it can begin to learn from there. So that's the brain science and pain science has been very instrumental for me in my rehabilitation, where I don't give you a ton of exercises anymore. I just give you maybe 1 or 2, but I'll make those 2 very different, or you'll make them very different do them different ways, make them more novel. So it can be much more feedback to your brain. So it's not about the quantity of exercises. That's about the quality that you're doing, and more so feeling the differences when you're there.
Yeah.
Very, very important. Very important.
How you doing time-wise?
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I think a huge component that people overlook is just corrective exercise, fixing muscle imbalances. Because people go in, start a training regimen, and they got all these muscle imbalances, and so you're just going to make those worse. You know what I mean? If you don't correct those in the first place, yeah.
Yeah, and then also like when you get into like corrective exercises, sometimes we isolate things too much as well.
Right,
so
right.
We need to integrate more of the whole body into things when we do them. That's why I like to do ground-based. Sorry, I'm moving around a little bit.
That's good.
I may have to change rooms in a moment. I'm at home and my family wakes up. I do ground-based body weight movements because you have to move a lot more of your body to get from point A to point B when you're down there, and it's actually very challenging to move on the ground.
Yeah.
As well.
What do you mean, like doing like crawls or something, or what do you mean?
Yeah, kind of anything. You can do rolling. I mean, just rolling from over from your back to your stomach, or lying on your back and rolling up, back and forth, kind of like a ball. But
what we did as a baby, the first movements we learned, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and if you think about that, right? There's a reason that you move like that in the beginning, because those patterns piece together to teach you how to have control of your body. And there's a reason that you learn to move on the ground. It didn't just come out of your mom and start walking. You have to,
Yeah.
I tell people, you have to learn to move before you can walk, right? So movement comes first, right? And then there. So your nervous system never forgets anything. No. Here's my running joke. The nervous system never forgets anything, even though you did.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
You can consciously not remember something, but subconscious, it's always there. So when you go back down to the ground and you do these movements, they say I'm 52 years old. I mean, my brain's going, hey, man, nice to have you back.
Right.
You remember what this was like? I mean, first of all, it's probably a time in your life where you didn't have many cares in the world, right? You're moving, you get stimulation, and you'll actually relearn some things there, reinforce some things there. So when you move those fundamental basic patterns, they actually help the patterns that you need to use when you stand up on 2 feet and do activities like carry a suitcase or pick up a heavy load and move it, or put your kid in a car seat or get out of a chair. Those patterns were built from the ABCs of the ground. And what many people forget, it takes a significant amount of strength to move your own body mass from the ground to a standing position.
Yeah.
A lot. That's why you kept falling when you were little, because you had a lot of ability to move, but didn't have much control over it, right? You didn't have much what they call stability. And stability is something that you have to have in order to generate speed and force. So stability always precedes force production. So if I go down to the ground, I give myself a lot more stabilization because I have a lot more body parts on the ground, and then I can relax. Right? And then I'll move. And here's the thing. Most people don't think there's much value to it because it feels like it's so simple, or they feel like they should be standing on a Bosu ball, swinging a kettlebell and throwing up
Right.
in order to get a good benefit from the program. And I'm like, it's actually just the opposite. You want to go, you regress to progress. You deal yourself back. And then if you can do that for a little while, you'll usually notice that when you do stand on the Bosu ball and swing the kettlebell, it'll be a lot more efficient It'll take you less effort to do it. And what that means is if something takes you less effort to do, that means you're more efficient at it.
All right.
Right. So going back down to the ground is what I call the Karate Kid of movement. That's wax on, wax off, sand the floor, paint the fence. That's the basic stuff that you have to do over and over and over and over to build a foundation that you can work on when you want to do more complicated movements. It's kind of like going back to the lymph. Like, you have to do that first to get the optimal results for stuff afterwards. And then the longer I've been doing this, I'm less concerned about protocols. I'm more concerned about processes. And that's very important to note that there's a difference between the two. So a process is where something comes into play, right? So you can have a very successful protocol for something, but if you do it at the wrong time, it's not going to have as much of a great result. So it's about the processes of your intervention, but it's also about the processes of how you got sick, right? So we started to talk before about these systems together. What's the process of how the liver talks with the kidney and how your liver dumps lymph into the thoracic trunk and whether it can go up and out? So you have to look at processes of systems. And I read a great quote once from a guy named James Clear, who said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems."
Yeah.
And I said, that's great, because that can mean two things for me. One, you're going to fall to the level of how well the systems of your body work together, and you're only going to go as high as the weakest one. And then it's also your system of approach, your system of intervention. Right? So goals are great, but if you have a goal and then say patient A hits the goal and patient B doesn't hit the goal, even though it's the same goal, what I know is patient A had a better system than patient B. That's what I know.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why didn't he get there too?
Right.
So that's what we need to do.
Are you a fan of working out barefooted without shoes? Because I read that book, Born to Run, and they're like, that's like putting your foot in a cast, man. You can't flex, you can't move all the muscles and tendons, and
you
that's
got to work your way into it. You can't open the door and run with bare feet.
Well, running, no, but yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't even work out and put excess load on it at first. Like my fitness icon is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he used to do squats and training in bare feet all the time. Right? Yeah. He was kind of iconic ahead of his time. There's no way I would say go deadlift and do squats with bare feet, because you can't even control your own weight on it. So I do tell people to spend a lot of time with their shoes off, because the foot communicates with the brain very directly. That's the first surface contact with the earth, right? And I think if I'm mistaken, you've got the only acupressure point on the bottom of your foot. I think it's kidney 1 is right there. So it's really important that you spend some time with your foot on the earth with some grounding, but also have your bare foot. I'm going to come back to that word again, different. You should put your feet on a lot of different things, from grass to concrete to rocks to sand to small rocks to big rocks to hot to cold. That's what you want to do, because then it's a lot more stimulus inside to your brain. And I can tell you right now, a little trick, that if you take your shoes off and you start to walk around on some rocks comfortably, you'll brace every single muscle in your quote unquote core you could ever do just from doing that without thinking about it.
Right.
It's a massive way to decrease back pain and prevent back pain, based on the communication that the foot has with the muscles in your lower back, but also the way that you engage in your center abdominal region. And I just read an article somewhere that scientists just traced the new nerve path from your foot to your face that they never saw before, right? And I think that says something, that we're doing the best we can with what we have, with where we're looking at the body right now. But there's so many things we have yet to see that exist that we don't think exist, because that nerve pathway was always there. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always been there. We just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to keep that in mind when we look at the human body and we look at medicine. And just because they don't see it right now doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we see that all the time. There used to be a time when they didn't think that the brain could change itself, right? That you got your brain and it decays and dies and then you're done. Now that they've got, okay, well, you've got neuroplasticity. So your brain can mold and shift and change. Different thought process, right? And then here, tying back to the lymph, there's the largest organ inside of your body used to be your liver. But now the largest organ in your body is an organ they discovered several years ago called your interstitium, and that's fluid-filled spaces in between the cells and tissue structures of your body that they call pre-lymph. It becomes lymph. And they never saw it before because we used to take tissue slices out and dehydrate them to see them under a microscope. And because we dehydrated them, we killed the fluid-filled structures.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we're like, holy cow, there's been an organ there all along, right?
Yeah.
And it's the largest organ in your body now. It used to be your liver.
Yeah.
Right? We've just scratched the surface of what we think the body is and what it can do and is capable of doing.
Yeah. There's a doctor from back in the day. He's either German or French, I forget, but he's the guy who had the chicken heart in a petri dish. He kept it alive for like 20 years. But one day someone forgot to change the fluid, so it wasn't in an alkaline environment anymore. And that's what ended up killing it. But yeah, if you keep the environment around the cells healthy, who knows how long people can live? It's crazy.
Well, the environment is everything, right?
Yeah.
The health inside of a cell is beholden to the environment outside of it.
Yeah. And we gotta get close to start wrapping this up. I was gonna ask you, do you have a morning routine that you follow? Any kind of morning practices that you do, or?
Yeah, I do. Well, I always do my walk in the morning. I walk 10,000 steps every single day. So I always do a walk in the morning for about 45 minutes. And then I do 15 minutes of some form of resistance movement. I do ground-based work. I'll do work with sandbags. I'll work with variable resistance bands, the elastic bands. I like those a lot because they're a little bit easier on my body. The older I get, I've slugging iron for so many years. It can be tough, and I love that because you have to control the recoil of the band. Right? And then I usually will, before I even do that, I'll wake up and I drink a glass of structured water, which means that I have water that has something in it. So I never drink plain water because there's no such thing as plain water in your body anywhere. So it's very poorly absorbed when you drink plain water. You need to put something in it. So I usually will have a pinch of some sea salt, or what they call Soleil water. So it's a certain mixture percentage of salt to water. And then I'll have fulvic/humic minerals, which are the building blocks of life. And then I'll have a dab of an essential oil in there, and collagen, liquid collagen. And I drink that every morning. And then I'm actually very excited to announce that I'm coming out with my own health supplement line.
Oh, nice.
Through my other company, Functional Health Solutions. We're on Instagram and on Facebook. So they'll be out in a month, and we're going to have, it's okay if I tell you which ones we're going to have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have 2 powders for your immune system. One's called Immunity 1, one's called Immunity 2. Those are to settle down an immune system that's overreacting, depending on what type of immune system you have. And we usually find that out based on your history and your questionnaires. Then we have a liquid-based collagen for protein. So we do liquid because a lot of people can't digest the powdered collagen because their stomach is a mess and their gut's a mess. And then I have a liquid version and a capsule version of fulvic and humic minerals. Sorry, somebody was calling me. And then we have hydrochloric acid with digestive enzymes and seraptase in there. So those are the 5 that we initially start with to help people deal with chronic pain or disease. They'll be available probably in about a month on our website. So I'm pretty excited about that. It kind of brings it back to the Ghandi quote. You know, I was working with myself and working with clients when I was trying to send them to places to get high quality supplements, or they were like, you know, which one should I get and how much? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna make my own. How's that? Like,
Right.
I'm just the kind of person that I'll just do it myself. And so that's where that is right now.
Yeah.
That's my routine. I'm always move every single day, and then having to start the day off with that mixture. It's really, really powerful. And yeah.
So have you at this point gotten to a point where you're okay with eating something unhealthy or doing something unhealthy? How do you balance that out? Do you keep it in perspective, or do you get too dogmatic, militant about it? Like, I don't, you know, because some people get that way.
Dude, that's a great question, because what happens is, one, once you've felt awful, you're scared to feel awful again. And then you're like, I'm never going to eat that bad stuff again or do this again, because you don't want to feel that way. Right. And you become fearful in a way.
Right.
But if you heal up your body and your immune system, you should be able to go back to stuff and be able to tolerate it. Not all the time. It's different for everyone. Right. But you have to test the waters. But you can really fall down some deep rabbit holes where you stop living too.
Yeah, eating disorders for sure. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, because you cannot eat, right? Or you can get so obsessive that you can hardly eat anything, and then your social life, your personal life gets affected. Yeah. But it's a really great question. You have to remember something, that we need to have some type of bad stuff in our lives. We need to have some stress in our lives, because stress is how you become resilient. Stress is how you adapt and you become stronger. It's only the incessant stress that takes you out. So the only way your immune system gets stronger is to have bad stuff thrown at it, right? A lot of different things. So if you actually don't eat stuff that's not so good for you, right? Or don't have the occasional bacteria that gets into you from playing in the dirt or pulling weeds and stuff, you'll actually get weaker. You'll have a more susceptible immune system, because it hasn't been exposed to enough stuff to become stronger.
Right.
So what they're finding is that people who do all this antibacterial and they kill all this stuff,
the sanitary,
they actually get sicker.
Right.
Because they're not exposed to things. And it comes to a point where if you've repaired your system and your gut and your immune system, you should be back to a point where it can function and balance itself. So if you eat something, you have to, say you couldn't eat something before it, and you're not deathly allergic to it, first of all, okay? Because some people are. You have to try and say, okay, how am I reacting to it now? Because if you've been able to heal and regenerate yourself, you should be able to do that. But then now you can spot the signs of whether your body's starting to go back towards a certain way it was feeling, so you can head it off. Because it's a really important thing for people to understand. Once you have a stress response for your immune system, you're always going to go that way under stress.
Right.
Always. So what they're finding is, because things always remember, your body never forgets. When you get into a stressful situation, a lot of times symptoms come back of your prior illness.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Here's the thing: even though they're not really there, because what happens is that your brain remembers you were at this big level of stress, and then this is what we did for it. And then when it gets there, it starts to give the same response back, like that. So first of all, you have to wrap your mind around it and say, okay, I got to consciously take that stress level down because I can mentally control that stress. You can, right? It's not easy, but you can. And then you can say to yourself, I was able to come back from it before, I can come back from it again. But knowing that how your body reacts to stress, it will always react that way. It'll always go back to it. So we find that a lot with people who've suffered from viruses in the past or yeast infections, things like that.
Yeah.
When you get under stress, those symptoms start to come back because that bacteria and that virus, they're very opportunistic, and they look for you to be under stress a lot, which weakens, it puts a crack in that armor, and they're like, okay, we're ready to come out and play again. So
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was R. Cohen. I have to go. I don't remember his name, so forgive me. But he said he thinks the cause of all chronic disease is incessant stress.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you brought up the
Right?
word. Yeah, you brought up the word sanitary a second ago, and that's so true. And just the way we come into this world, because like we're so big on immediately doing like C-sections for childbirth, and
Right.
there's that healthy vaginal bacteria that we need to pass through. That's going to shape our immune system for the rest of our life, and so we're already 1 foot in the grave by not, going through that birth canal. So, and then just that, and the C-section, and as a chiropractor, they're pulling the baby out by its head, by its neck. What is that doing to their spinal adjustment for the rest of their life too? It's like, what are we doing? It's so
well,
crazy.
I know it's crazy, right? Well, I mean, you can see some ongoing research about that where they're showing how these children are ending up with issues later because they had a C-section and not a vaginal to get the bacteria that they
Right.
need
Yeah.
into the sinuses, into the mouth, and into the gut. And then if you don't breastfeed, you miss the colostrum, which is designed in Brother's Breath, which is designed to seal the gut, because all kids are born with a leaky gut anyway, right? And then they're seeing now that when they examined placenta, the blood in the placenta, they're seeing, I think this was like 10 years ago, that it's probably even higher now, but there were, I think, 250 to 300 registered toxins
Yeah.
in the blood of the placenta going into the kid right from the get-go, and a significant of them were cancer causing.
Yeah.
And then think about it now of what we're exposed to all of the time and everything through no fault of our own most of the time, because of stuff that's sprayed on new furniture or on carpet or in cars or plastic and bottles and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's just an onslaught of all that shit has repercussions.
It adds up. Yeah. Yeah. He just did an interview. I want to say Genevieve White. I think that's her name.
Yeah,
And
she's a biotoxin lady, right? Or toxicity, right?
Yeah, and just the baby bottles, the off-gassing of the plastics, and there's flame retardant in the formulas. It's like, yeah, we really, as a society, really need to take a look at what we're doing. Yeah.
It's really scary, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. I mean, it's going to have to come from the grassroots level, I think. Right?
Yeah. So. I already told my wife I'm getting a generator, I'm getting a bunker, and I'm going to get a handgun just in case. Just in case.
Well, it's like I said before. I mean, it's your responsibility. Don't just assume that because something is on a shelf that it's okay to eat. That that they say the government said it's good for you. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist by any means, but you got to remember, like they talk about big pharma, which are medications. It's a big industry, but the food industry is pretty damn big too.
Yeah.
So it's getting harder and harder to find real food or natural food anywhere. Yeah. And I just read a book called Never Fear Cancer Again, and it talked about how one of the biggest keys to restoring your health and coming back from any disease, but he singled out cancer. His name was Raymond Francis, by the way. was you have to change your diet, your nutrition. And since I was sick that time with my autoimmune disease, I'd have to say, you know, I've known it, right?
Yeah.
Heard it, but until I experienced it to know just how much my whole body changed, but more importantly, my brain, because the one thing that I lost when I was sick was the first thing to go was my brain. I got very brain fog, tired, fatigued, couldn't remember things. I couldn't practice anymore. I had to stop teaching because I couldn't articulate things. I was heading on into Alzheimer's for sure, right? And scared the hell out of me, man. You know.
Bet.
And then so the only thing that brought that back was the restorative program that I put myself through, which I now teach. But starting to get my brain back. Brain fog is the number one. These are the first sign you'll get of chronic inflammation for people. Right. But we just take it for granted, you know, and it's like you're always in some stupor or you forget, right? Like that. Or you get so, here's the thing, your body is supposed to adapt to things. It's like we're so used to feeling like crap.
Shitty, yeah.
That it's our new normal. We forget what good's supposed to feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you get back there, you're like, oh my God, this is the way you're supposed to feel. Like, right. Yeah, because you have to find a way to deal with feeling like crap, because otherwise, how are you going to go on? Your body sets a tolerance for it, and it's just, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you should be healthy, happy, energetic, vitality, joy. You know, not the sadness and depression and anger and the way people are in the world today. If you just look around, you can see how people treat each other. That is the first sign of a society that's unhealthy.
Yeah, for sure. But it's hard work, man. It's not easy. You got to do the work. You got to put in the work, man. That's why I tell people it's not. Well,
it is. I had a guy on my podcast, Dr. Ben Lynch, and, you know, he said, you know, health, I said it before, you know, health is a 4-letter word. It's work. It's work. You know, you got to work your ass off to get it. Because you can go down quick, fast, and in a hurry. But it can also go up quick, fast. I always say that if you give the body what it wants, it'll tell you quick, fast, and in a hurry if you got it right. If you don't give it what it wants, it tells you that too. Right?
Right. Exactly.
So either way, but you know, if you give it what it wants, its grocery list, you'll start to feel better. Right?
I hear. Well, that's a good way to end it. We got to get out of here, my friend.
Yeah, fun show. Thanks.
Yes, this was a great conversation. A lot more I wanted to talk about, but maybe next time. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
Very simple. Thank you. If you type in "Stop Chasing Pain" on the internet, you'll find everything related to me, all my social media stuff. It's on that first page. And then when it comes on up, all my workshops, you can get the Lymphatic Mojo video as well that you can stream right away. You own it in about 5 minutes or less. And then my other company as well is called Functional Health Solutions, or that was the name. You can find that on Instagram as well. And that one is fhsolutions.net, fhsolutions.net. You can link from there as well. But I'm not hard to find. I'm on the internet quite a bit.
You're around, yeah.
And sharing my stuff. I do most of my stuff through Instagram, honestly.
Okay, that's how I found
you. I do have stuff on Facebook. And then, of course, I have my own podcast, the Stop Chasing Pain podcast, that's been on for about 8 years now. And then you can link to that through any major podcast platform.
Okay. Now, I know you're coming to the West Coast in October 5th.
I'm coming out in Pasadena. I'm going to be there teaching my 2-day Lymphatic Mojo body aquarium course. So the sign up for that is on the stopchasingpain.com website under workshops. So that's going to be a good one. I actually had a group of physicians invite me out for that one, which was nice. Cool to see. I was very happy to see that. Yeah, that's the only one I'm going to be having out on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm in
So
the
if
Bay
you're out
Area.
there,
I'm in the Bay Area. You're gonna have to come up north, man.
yeah, that'll probably be in 2020. I'll
All
be
right, okay,
coming up
cool.
there. So I'm coming out there probably early in 2020. I hope, because I love it up there. I've been to Seattle a couple times.
Yeah, yeah.
Times. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you giving me your time. This was a great conversation. It's fun to connect, and just always excited to talk to people who are out there, you know, as an advocate and ambassador to make change. So I appreciate what you're doing, man.
Thank you very much. I had a really good time. Appreciate it.
All right, cool. See ya.